Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Northern Kentucky Spotlight Podcast presented by CVG. I'm your host, Sarah Brookbank. Today on the podcast, we are joined by Kaelyn of the Kentucky Event Company. She talks about how her business can take your next event to the next level and work seamlessly with your team. We are also joined by Dan Keck of FocusCFO, who highlights how their services can help business owners and leaders make critical decisions that will help them grow. Thank you to our podcast sponsors, CVG, our title sponsor, C Crew Consulting, our digital sponsor, and our episode sponsor, Schneller Knockelman. Gear up in orange and blue for our next Eggs and Issues. This month, Eggs and Issues is Beyond the Pitch, a conversation with Jeff Birding, the co-CEO of FC Cincinnati. That event is happening on Tuesday, June 18th, and we are so excited to have Jeff Birding back at Eggs and Issues. You can register for that event and learn more at nkychamber.com/events. Now, let's go hear our business news roundup from Link NKY, meet our members of the week, hear from our sponsors, and I'll be back with this week's guests.
The Link NKY Business Roundup is sponsored by Payroll Partners. Business owners, CFOs, and HR pros just don't have time for hold times and hotlines. They need payroll partners. Welcome back to another Link NKY Weekly Business News Roundup. For Link NKY, I'm Noah Jones, here to fill you in on all the business news from this past week. Let's begin. The Copley family is reviving Alexandria's iconic Spare Time Grill, a 1950s-style diner that opened in 1958. The Copleys will preserve the diner's nostalgic look while adding updates, reintroducing classic items like the Spare Burger and soft-serve ice cream. They aim to open by early July with outdoor seating, engaging with the community to cater to their preferences. Grateful for local support, the Copleys look forward to bringing Spare Time back as a beloved community spot. After 6 years of business, Flying Axes in Covington is set to close on June 3rd. The axe throwing bar, located at 110 West 6th Street, below 2nd Story, announced its impending closure on its Instagram page. The bar first opened in 2018 and is owned by Dave Durand, also the co-owner of 2nd Story. It's located on the ground level of the historic Covington Firehouse building, which was constructed in the 1890s. 3 Northern Kentucky startups, Inflow, Mimi's Macros, and Taste on Elm, have received equity-free LEAP funding from Main Street Ventures to help grow their businesses. Main Street Ventures, a nonprofit supporting entrepreneurs in the greater Cincinnati area, offers launch and LEAP grants for businesses at different stages. The LEAP funding, between $10,000 and $30,000, is for revenue-generating businesses to scale and become more sustainable. Half of this funding comes from the Northern Kentucky Entrepreneurship Fund, which aims to boost local startups. Last year, Main Street Ventures invested over $1 million to support more than 60 entrepreneurs. The Fort Wright Duncan is now open to the public after the location's grand opening Tuesday morning. The building formerly housed Substation 2, which closed in April of last year as the restaurant's owners could not find a relocation spot after the sale of the building to One Holland Group. The Fort Wright Duncan is located at 1826 Dixie Highway and is open 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. And that's it for your Link NKY Weekly Business News Roundup. For Link NKY, I'm Noah Jones. Thank you for listening.
Why would you travel to England?
For football.
To go or not to go?
That is an easy question.
To visit the land of Shakespeare.
To take in all the sights.
Authentic fish and chips.
To experience arts and culture.
2 words, British Open.
To visit my family.
Same reason I go anywhere. For a pint of beer. To start my trip through Europe.
Whatever your reason, there's no better time than now.
Ranking on Google Search and Maps is easy to understand, but hard to do. It requires constant effort and attention, uploading new photos, responding to Google reviews, writing weekly posts, and checking suggested updates. Google listing optimization takes experience and time, and there are no shortcuts. C Crew gives your Google My Business account the steady, consistent attention it needs to be effective, optimizing, updating, and expanding critical content every single week. From local retail stores to large regional networks, C-Crew generates content, establishes benchmarks, and creates dramatic, measurable increases in engagement. So what can C-Crew do for your business? More calls, more clicks, more clients.
Congratulations to our members of the week. You can learn more about these businesses by following the Northern Kentucky Chamber on social media, where we will highlight one of these businesses each day. Now, let's meet our members of the week. McAllister's Deli is a fast casual deli that believes that by serving great food, they bring people together. Haven Lighting transforms homes, businesses, campuses, and outdoor spaces into premier gathering spots with their advanced exterior smart LED lighting. Beleva Aesthetics is an elegant, innovative space where providing clients with the best practices in medical aesthetics is prioritized. Gateway is an all-private 40-bed inpatient rehabilitation hospital in Florence that provides short-term stays with high-intensity therapy. DuPont Plumbing is a reliable family-owned plumbing business established in 1961 and located in Southgate. Hi, everyone. Today on the podcast, I am joined by Kaelyn Caldwell, CEO of the Kentucky Event Company. Kaelyn, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, I'm excited to have you on. So tell us a little bit about the Kentucky Event Company and what you guys do.
Yeah. So Kentucky Event Company, formerly known as Lexington Event Company, we are exactly what it sounds like. We're an event company. We're based in Kentucky. Our corporate office is in Lexington, but we do have associates across the state and across the country. And we produce events. So corporate events, conferences, trade shows, festivals, annual meetings, board meetings, incentives, trips, team building, you name it. The smallest event we've ever done is 3 people, and the largest we've ever worked with a larger team to produce was a little shy of 100,000. So anything between there, and we're in.
Yeah, that seems like everything would fit between 3 and 10,000.
Yeah, exactly. So we're good with that.
Yeah, that is great. And so you said that you're based in Kentucky, but you serve more than just this region, more than just Lexington. Tell us a little bit about your geographic range and the types of clients that you guys work with.
Yeah, so we produce events all over the country and select destinations abroad. And, you know, what makes technology obviously makes what we do easier now. We can meet virtually, we can plan virtually, you can really plan from anywhere in the world. And then for the most part, you have to be on site for the actual event, although there are the occasional hybrid or virtual events where that's not true either. But we always go on site, right? And so driving, flying, traveling, it makes it easy. We can get there. I mentioned earlier, we have associates across the country, which makes producing events outside of Lexington and outside of Kentucky very easy. It also means that it's beneficial to the client because you're not always having to pay these big hefty travel fees, because it's a very good chance that we have somebody nearby that can take the lead, and it's, you know, a short drive or a short fly versus going across the country or abroad. So, you know, people ask, who do we serve? We serve everybody. You know, any corporate group, from a small internal ribbon cutting to a ticketed event to the general public, annual board meeting, employee appreciation, the sky's the limit. And, you know, we'll kind of go wherever a client takes us.
Yeah, that's a really great and valuable service. You mentioned that you have team members all over the country. Tell us a little bit about your team.
Yeah, so obviously we're based in Kentucky, so the bulk of our group is here. Our busy season is typically April through October, so we've got several contractors that plug in, about 15-ish during those months. And then we've got our core team that stays throughout the year. They're sprinkled all over, so we've got folks in California, Florida, Georgia, Missouri, all over Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana. It makes it easy to produce events in other places, makes it fun, and then they all get to kind of pop in and out for things that are close to them. But it also allows us to reach the right people instead of just the people near us. That's not to say that the Kentucky folks aren't the best people. We like to believe that they are, but sometimes we need somebody with expertise that isn't based here, or we need, them to help with an event that isn't in Kentucky or the surrounding states. And so plugging in with those folks helps us achieve that. And it also makes us more competitive as far as sourcing some of the bigger items, right? AV, venues across the country, promotional products, things like that. So it ends up being a benefit to the end user, our client, because they get the most bang for their buck. And then we can navigate who those people are and where they come from. And because we meet virtually most of the time, they don't always know that the person they're talking to is in Georgia or California or whatever. I mean, eventually they get to know us and they know where we are, but it makes it very easy to conduct business on their schedule and not have to deal with kind of the back and forth of in-person meetings.
Yeah, that is really great. It sounds like you guys do a lot of work making everything really easy for your clients, especially just talking about those location things. When you think about event planning across the country, what sets you all apart from different competitors in the region or across the country?
So I think having our team predominantly remote, and not predominantly, they are remote, gives us an advantage because our overhead is a little lower. We don't have the physical office space and the lease and the utilities, and our team can be a little bit more agile. We can plug people in and out based on the client needs and the event needs, and not just because we have this person here and they need something to do. I think our technology and the process and procedure that we've honed throughout the years has also helped keep us competitive. We have a really streamlined workflow, and it allows the clients 24-hour access to all of their stuff and full transparency and visibility. But it also prevents us having to constantly send, updates or answer check-in emails or, hey, where does this stand? Can you send me this current contract? I can't find it. They have it. They have access to it in the way that they need and want. And it just makes it really conducive during the planning process. We've kind of honed in this project management portal that we use. And so we find and we think, and our clients say that it just makes it a little bit easier and they can see everything at once. So then if they have to report to their committee or board or boss or whoever, they've got access to it and they feel confident and comfortable that they can relay that information.
Yeah, that's very valuable. Here at the Chamber, we throw a lot of events across our committees, across our different groups. And event planning is a lot of work. So it sounds like you guys really do a great job working with your clients to make, like I said, the process easier, seamless for them. And one of the things I do want to talk about, I know you wanted to talk about this too, events over the past 10 plus years have really, really changed. And especially during the pandemic, you mentioned that hybrid virtual events really came to the forefront and now we're kind of fading away. Can you talk about the changes in events and how your company has adapted to that and what you expect to see in the future?
Yeah. So, obviously with COVID, it was a hard stop for everything in person. We had to quickly pivot to this kind of virtual model. And we still see that some corporate groups are sticking with that. Now, I'll say there's some pros to that, right? This podcast, for example, obviously I'm in my office, you're in your office. We meet with our clients virtually now, even if they are based in Lexington or Kentucky. Now, the exception to that is a walkthrough still has to be done in person or should be. But a regular check-in meeting, a planning meeting, we can do that via Zoom and it's easy and it's a lot more conducive, to be honest. We found that we were spending a lot less time doing and talking and meeting and a lot more time actually working, and we were a lot more productive. So I think that's a pro that has come out of COVID, and hopefully that's something that will stay. We do see that some of these virtual or hybrid models are staying post-COVID, or they're staying in some regard. So we just produced an annual meeting for a Northern Kentucky-based company for their entire team. They have locations in 7 different states. So they only meet in person every so many years, especially post-COVID. So it's just easy, it's financially, it's easier. Logistically, it's easier. But they want everybody to have the same experience and the same content, right? So it was a hybrid model, hub and spoke concept. So you live stream the presentation from one location to the others. The others are having a similar simultaneous experience by venue, food, decor, signage, run of show, et cetera. And then they're seeing this feed live in real time. So they're getting to experience the event at the same time as everybody else. They just happen to be in Georgia or Indiana or wherever. And it works really well. As long as you have the right AV partner, it works really well. And I think it's more conducive, and there's not as much time traveling, so it can be a 1-day experience instead of a 3-day experience, and it's a lot more responsibly done as far as expense and travel and waste and all of that. So I think those types of changes will continue as we move past this post-COVID era, and we're okay with that. I mean, obviously, we still like to meet in person, but depending on the size of the event, sometimes it's just not feasible. So we're happy with some of the changes that we've seen that have stayed around after COVID, and I think it'll continue.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of those options that makes it really easy for companies to serve a lot of people where they are. And Kaelyn, this has been so great to hear more about your business, the Kentucky Event Company. Is there anything else that I haven't asked that you'd like to share about your organization?
Think so. Sometimes folks see the website and they see that Lexington Event Company brand first. The Kentucky Event Company is right next to it. But, the big thing for that was that people heard Lexington and their concern was, will you leave Lexington? Will you go outside of Lexington? And the answer is yes. Everyone's out of Lexington except for me. I'm the only one here. So, we'll go anywhere. We'll do anything. We love getting out and meeting new people. We've really enjoyed engaging with the Northern Kentucky community. We're a new chamber member, and we have already had such a great kind of welcoming reception from the Northern Kentucky businesses, which has been wonderful. And we've already worked with quite a few folks up there. So we're excited to get to know folks more and to be an asset and to help and continue to engage. And we appreciate your time interviewing us.
Yes, of course. Well, Kaelyn, we are so happy to have you as a chamber member. For people who are new to you and are meeting you through this podcast for the first time, how can people get more information and how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so the website is Kentucky Event Co, C-O like company, KentuckyEventCo.com. All of our contact information is on there, and there's some videos and case studies and things like that gives you a better idea of what all we can do. Of course, we're on social media, Instagram, Facebook, things like that. But we'd love to chat and connect and learn more about other folks in the community.
Awesome. Well, Kaelyn, thank you once again for being on the podcast today. I really enjoyed your time and appreciated talking to you about your business.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Hi, everyone. Today on the podcast, I am joined by Dan Keck, who is the area president of FocusCFO. Dan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's awesome to be here. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So tell us about FocusCFO. It's a really interesting concept, and you guys are across the nation, but tell us about your organization.
Yeah, FocusCFO started by Brad Martin in 2001. We'll call it, up in Columbus, Ohio. And we're not across the nation yet, but we're getting close. We're in about 15 states and about 25 or so metropolitan areas. We do have one office in Las Vegas, which is the only one west of the Mississippi, I'll say.
Okay.
But it kind of migrated from Cincinnati from Columbus throughout other places in Ohio and down to Cincinnati.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what you guys do and what the services you provide are.
So the service that we provide is a fractional CFO services for small to medium-sized businesses, and we kind of consider those businesses that are somewhere between 2 million and say 40 million in revenue, who are not in a position or don't have in the budget room for a full-time CFO, but could certainly use the expertise and the knowledge from a CFO working in the business with their leadership team to help things move forward.
Yeah. So providing that CFO service obviously is a benefit to a lot of businesses. Talk a little bit about those benefits, what your team kind of provides, and then what kind of businesses you guys work with. I know you mentioned that revenue range, but what kinds of businesses is it everybody? Yeah,
it's really any type of business. Some privately held business is basically what we work with. Nonprofits as well. It's a great model for nonprofits to have a CFO that's available to them. Our typical engagement, we'll call it, is 1 day a week. So 3 things that we do that are somewhat unique is our CFOs are embedded. By that, I mean, we expect to have an office in the brick and mortar location. So our CFOs are going into the office 1 day a week. They're working with the leadership team. They're aware of what's going on in the business and the goals of the business, even helping set the goals of the business as they go along. The other thing is we have a significant team. So FocusCFO our CFOs are really made up of men and women who've spent 20 plus years in the industry as CFOs and are at the point in their career where they would prefer to work less.
Yeah.
But they still want to work. So it's kind of a step between full-time employment and full-time retirement. And, a good part about that is those folks are really engaged, they're involved, and they're interested in the best outcome for the businesses they work with. They're, maybe 1, 2, 3 days, however many is a week with different businesses even at some points in time. So it's a great benefit to the CFO, and it's a great benefit to the business. They get great expertise that otherwise they probably couldn't afford to get in the house.
Yeah. And how is that fractional CFO piece a little bit different than someone else you might bring on into an organization?
In a different position or?
Yeah. So I know a lot of people work with accounting and finance. Obviously the CFO, chief finance officer, they're the really big guns. But how is it different than working with an outside accountant?
Yeah, CFOs, the way that, I like to look at it and the way it became clear to me, I was actually in a company who went through the process of selling. The owners came to the leadership team and said, hey, we're going to sell. And it took about 3 years to get it done. We did it without a CFO. Mm-hmm. We did a pretty good job. It worked out pretty well, but in hindsight, a CFO probably would have helped us in several different areas. So for me, a controller or a CPA or a bookkeeper, they're vital parts of the organization, vital parts of the business, and typically they're looking at what's going on in the moment or even in the rearview mirror, I guess is kind of an analogy to look at it. You're driving down the road in a car. And those are the folks who are in the moment and looking in the rearview mirror. And the CFOs sitting in the passenger seat looking out forward, trying to figure out where the business is going to go further down the road. It's a really critical need yet. Any large organization certainly is going to have one, and a small organization can benefit in the same way on a fractional basis.
Yeah, definitely that forward thinking. You mentioned guidance. That's essential for our businesses, especially those small to medium ones that, like you said, might be missing that piece. So what is the process like of working with FocusCFO? If you're bringing someone on, is there a contract? How does that all get started?
Yeah, we have a service agreement, we'll call it, just that kind of details the do's and don'ts of what a CFO can do in a business. What we don't have is there's not a long-term contract. We kind of work on we'll call it a retainer type basis, where we set up an agreement and the CFO comes in and we typically ask for about a 30 days notice if you're going to discontinue the service. It doesn't happen often, but it happens. And at some points it's, we've been told we're done and that's it. And those are very rare circumstances, but we work without a contract because we feel like the CFO is going to bring value on a monthly, weekly, daily basis. And that value, that investment is well worth the investment. So our folks typically stay in place somewhere around 5 years, just under 5 years.
Yeah, it's a nice long chunk of time. A lot of guidance, a lot of work you can do with an organization over the course of 5 years. I know you mentioned nonprofits. I know 5 years in the nonprofit space is a long, long time to be doing a lot of work. So if someone is listening to this podcast and they say, FocusCFO seems like the organization for me, this is the piece that I'm missing within my organization. How can people get in touch with you, and what else do they need to know about this process?
They can get in touch with myself or anyone at FocusCFO through the website, FocusCFO.com. I would love for them to get in touch with me personally at my email address, d.keck@FocusCFO.com, or give me a call and reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm not hard to find in the internet world today.
Oh, very nice. Well, Dan, it's been so nice to have you on and talking about FocusCFO. Is there anything else today that you would like to highlight about your organization, about the work that you guys are doing to our viewers and listeners?
I've only been in this since September. I started September of last year through the process that I mentioned before. I separated from that company eventually. And when I got into it, I didn't realize how much I would enjoy it, for one, selfishly, I guess. But I didn't realize how much of a great impact we have on small businesses. There's a process of educating to introduce business owners to what a CFO can do for their entity and how beneficial it can be in the long run. it's a great benefit if you're struggling, if the business is growing. It's if you're frustrated with accurate or on-time closing. It's a position that we can come in and we can help you out right away. Or if the long-term goal is to build value in the business, to transfer that value in some way, shape, or form to your family or sell the business outright. It's a CFO role is a critical role that you really want to have in the business. And it's very fulfilling for me to see the small businesses succeed in the way that they've succeeded. It's really good.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, you are speaking my language here at the Chamber. 85% of our businesses are small businesses. So, the work that small businesses do in our community and being able to work with you all maybe to increase that value and do better work is really great to hear. Well, Dan, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. This has been a fun experience. I appreciate it. I was a little nervous coming into my first podcast ever, but seems like it went okay. And thank you. I really appreciate you.
Yeah. Well, Dan, thanks again.
Chris Knockelman with Schneller Knockelman Plumbing, Heating, and Air. It's spring now, but before you know it, our ACs are working overtime.
Dave, it's going to be warm soon.
Right now is a good time to get the AC serviced, right?
You can get your AC tuned up for only $59.
So get your $59 tune-up at
SKPHA.com. SKPHA. So if your plumbing and mechanical systems give you trouble, just remember our name, Schneller Knockelman.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about the Kentucky Event Company and FocusCFO on today's podcast. Thank you to our sponsors, CVG, C-Crew Consulting, and Schneller Knockelman. Like I said, Eggs and Issues Beyond the Pitch is happening on Tuesday, June 18th. You can learn more about that event and our other great events at nkychamber.com/events. Finally, if you're a member who would like to be featured on the podcast, or if you're someone who is interested in joining the Northern Kentucky Chamber of Commerce, please reach out to Lynn Ablin. And if you're a member who would like to share your workforce strategies and resources on NKY at Work, please reach out to Nancy Spivey. You can find their contact information on the screen in front of you if you are a viewer, and our listeners can find that information at our staff directory at nkychamber.com. Thanks again for tuning in. I'll talk to you guys next week.